Right. What's going on, everybody? Coach Ken from Giving It a Try. This presentation I've been working on for a little bit. I get a lot of new questions, a lot of things about cycling just from one end to the other. And each of these topics that we're going to discuss can actually be dived in a little more. But this is just a generalization to start getting the conversation started with athletes and, you know, go through this and revisit it from time to time, work on a few things. Not all of this has to be done at once, and you will progress a little bit better in cycling. Why is it important now? Let's just talk about a few things here on why cycling is so important, right? So it does make up the largest part of a triathlon. So when you're talking about the gains that we can be had here, it is the largest portion of the race, mileage-wise, time-wise, and it does take up a large portion of our training. I mean, if you're training for half distance or full distance, you're going to be putting in some serious miles there, and it can be a little daunting when you step up to that distance for the first time, especially. And I remember when I was going through my first season of hitting these milestones of a 20-mile ride, a 30-mile ride, a 40-mile ride, and just all the questions and things, and it's pretty overwhelming, especially if you go to your first race and you see the bikes and the look of the people when they come in of all their gear, and you're just feeling a little bit out of place. Completely normal, and that doesn't take away anything. My wife did her first triathlon on a mountain bike, and as you'll see in this video, what I did my first multi-sport race in as well. So again, it makes up that largest part of the race. It's lower impact than running, which is a good thing, because if we're going to spend so much time on the bike, training the bike, racing on the bike, it is lower impact on the body than running. Through all the athletes that I've been coaching, I will say that out of the three disciplines, swim, bike, run, running is the thing that usually leads to some type of injury or overuse, or if you have something going on, the first sport, unfortunately, that you kind of have to drop most times is the running. But I've had athletes, triathletes who, or even runners who have had something going on where they can't put the weight and the load on the body with running, but they're able to get more swimming and biking going. So the good thing is if you can get familiar and like cycling, you can make a lot of gains on it, because regardless of what you have going on, you're always kind of able to get a little more biking in out of all the other things and begin to improve. And there's just a lot to learn and dial in. I mean, it's pretty overwhelming, especially now. The sport has gone just equipment-wise, and what you'll see is a big topic here is going to be efficiency. Crazy. It's just, there's so much more accessibility to getting more efficient on the bike. Whereas in the past, the field was kind of a little more level. It was kind of like the power and who put in the most work and the most training really did rise to the top. But now you could have, which we'll get into, like two cyclists who are very similar in ability, but one just happens to get such better results because of the efficiency and a lot of other factors on the bike. So let's dive into it real quick right now. When we're talking about, we want to go biking, right? So what am I going to do? I have trained athletes before that have most of their training inside on the trainer and having great results on race day. I've also had some that just don't even have a trainer. They prefer to do everything outside, or if they can get some indoor work on a junky day on like a stationary bike just to get the legs spinning on an easy, shakeout spin, recovery spin. It's kind of up to you. But I will say trainers now, indoor trainers, that's gonna level you up. And we're gonna get into that in a little bit on indoor trainers. But it's good to have the option. For myself, what I like to do when I'm out of season, and what I mean out of season is triathlon season's over, unless it's a beautiful day and I want to just get out on the bike and I have the ability and the time, because I do have a pretty busy schedule, just with life, family, and everything else right now, I'll get out there. But having that trainer available, especially into the off season, it's a game changer now, especially with the types of trainers, and we'll get into that in a little bit, is if you have a good indoor, easy, accessible indoor trainer setup, by far you will make some big, huge leaps and bounds, and we'll get into why that's so important. It's a funny flow chart here. If you kind of look on the side there, it's just like the decision on how should I go outside. And it's a pretty cool chart. If you're thinking like, should I go outside or stay inside today? Think about it. Is it safe to go ride? Where you are, the weather, the time of day. you kind of go down that chart there. If it's chance of bad weather, you don't want to ride in bad weather, you're going to ride indoors. It's pretty self-explanatory on that. But as you see, there's also here some pros and cons on indoor versus outdoor riding. So if safety is a factor, pro. Indoor, awesome. I mean, you can train hours and hours, days and years on the trainer, and the chances of something happening are slim to none. But you go outside and you want to ride on the roads, and anything can happen out there. And obviously safety, if that's your number one concern, indoor riding checks that box huge. Time factor, I mean, let's face it, busy life. If you got a quick hour ride you got to get in, especially midweek in a training plan, it's just easier sometimes to load the workout or just get on the bike, get on one of these programs and just get your workout done. I mean, you can be set up on the bike, off the bike for that hour ride within an hour and 10 minutes, hour 15 minutes and be done, as opposed to if you're going to travel somewhere or have to get all your stuff together and then get out on the road. Is safety, again, are we going back up to that? Is safety a concern? Power numbers, when we talk about that, power is great and we'll talk about that, but real world power numbers for racing, to know what we're going to do out there on the course, on the bike we're going to have on the course, that data will obviously be more accurate if you're out on the road. We can actually take some real life data against types of conditions you might have in races, as opposed to the trainer, which is in a very controlled environment. And we'll get into power numbers on that as well, why they're important to have power numbers on both. But if we're really looking at the power numbers we want to look at for pacing in a race, going outside and getting that data is definitely where it is. Race prep. Obviously, if you're going to be doing some type of technical course, hill work, things like that, you can get that in. You can do hills on, home on your indoor trainer, but it's just not going to be the same. You have to, there's so many other things we're going to talk about as well, is bike handling skills, learning how to climb, learning how to change gears. Those are things that you're going to do inside, but you're not going to do it in the real world environment that you're going to have to learn on by going outdoors. Consistency, it's just there. I mean, the consistency of being able to jump on your trainer and get the workouts done in a timely manner, in a safe manner, it's amazing. Like, how could you not, understand how important it is to have an indoor trainer at this point in the game, because just everybody has it, basically. There'll be no excuse. If you have to get that ride in today and it's bad weather, guess what? You're going to be getting your ride done. So for me, when I'm in season in triathlon, in a build for a race, typically most training plans have about 3 bikes per week, a midweek kind of easy recovery type spin, some type of workout, whether it's intervals, tempo, sweet spot work, and then a long bike ride typically on the weekend. For myself, when I'm kind of in the zone training, my 2 midweek bike rides are usually typically always done on the trainer, and then the long bike ride, I like to get all that race pace data, real world bike handling skill stuff out on the road, and that bike ride will get longer as the season progresses and get me right into race day. Of course, if there's bad weather on one of those weekends and we got to change things up, it is what it is. I'll bite the bullet and do the long ride on the trainer, but that's kind of how I break my stuff up. And comfort. It is more comfortable being outside. I will say that. Being locked on the trainer, I don't personally like the trainer. I can only, myself, get like hour and a half on the trainer. If it's a focused, specific type of workout, I have no problem on it. But I give a lot of credit to people that get a lot of their long stuff done on the trainer just throughout the year, because just for me, comfort-wise, it doesn't really suit me too well. But it is, very good to be on that indoor trainer, pushing what you need to get done and getting those workouts done. So this leads into indoor trainers. So do you have an indoor trainer? Do you have the types of indoor trainers? They can make a whole talk on indoor trainers in general and the types of them. They progress so much and there's so many options out there right now. But the long story short is you got to get a smart trainer. They're out there. They're affordable now. They're not that $1,000 plus item anymore. You can get some cheaper ones. They wheel on, wheel off, all these different things. If you're kind of confused about what you want to select, reach out to me. We'll talk about it. We'll make the best decision for you. And there's tons of different programs out there. Don't feel obligated to lock into one. They are subscriptions. They are monthly. But, it does give you the ability to have a little more immersive environment, something to make it a little more fun than just staring at a screen and numbers. So there's tons of different options out there, tons of different programs to check out, talk to your friends, see what they like. But the one thing I like to say about once you're set up, once you're on your trainer, once you're dialed in, once you pick a program, try and stick with it. Remain consistent on your platform because that's going to give you the consistent numbers that we're going to need. If you kind of fluctuate here and there and you're on different programs and on different things like that, you just consistency. Consistency is key because if you do have consistency and specifically consistency in your training and data, that's how we can measure progression. And then you can get very specific with your workouts on a smart trainer. So we can do threshold type testing, which will give you zones to be in, and give you specific work that you need to be doing and specific paces, specific power, specific efforts to do on a smart trainer, as opposed to just getting on the bike, spinning your legs, and not really getting the best bang for your buck. So that's cycling indoors versus outdoors. Just a question that comes up. What do I prefer? What do I think is better? Long story short, at the end of the day, great for those easy midweek specific interval type rides. That long stuff on the week, got to get the race prep and the feel in, so try and get your long runs done outside. If you're newer, typically you don't start off with this $10,000 bike or this super top-end triathlon bike. A lot of people start with road bikes. Nothing against that. Don't feel that, if you haven't gone to one of these bigger races yet, these half or full distance races, you're going to be doing your first one, you're going to see some pretty serious hardware when you show up. I remember my first multi-sport race with my rinky-dink bike that I showed up with, not knowing a thing about what was going on. And as soon as I saw everybody coming in with all their gear and bikes, I was intimidated. But don't worry about that. A real, true, good athlete is going to respect you for they should all remember their first days. So don't sweat it. Again, the journey is for you and you alone, so don't worry about anybody else. It's always about you versus you, and continuing progress, race after race, season after season. So inevitably, let's talk about it. Differences between a road bike and a tri bike. You may have had both. You may have never had a road bike. You may have never had a tri bike. So let's just talk about what the differences are in them. Obviously, at the front end, it's completely different, different type of cockpit. You have different types of handlebars on both, but the frames and the geometry are different on these bikes. So there is obviously a reason why TT or triathlon bikes were created, was because they are more efficient. They are more geometrically shaped to be able to put you in a more aggressive position and a position to cut through the wind better, and as well be more efficient where you don't need to put out so much power to get the speed that you may be looking for race day. So as you can see right here, again, there's a bunch of different degrees, there's a bunch of different angles and lengths on the bikes here. And you can kind of see here, this person's in the drops on the road bike on the hoods there, and then this person is in an aggressive position on the TT bike. You can see their arms are at a nice angle right here. So if the wind's coming in here, you're going to be creating a little bit of resistance there on the road bike positioning, as opposed to the TT or tri bike, which is going to be very apt to cut through. And you can also notice the leg angle. It's going to use a little bit different type of muscles in your leg there. It's made that way on a triathlon bike. The theory behind it is it's going to save your legs a little bit for the run, because the running is going to use a slightly different muscle group than you will on the bike in that position. So if you have a road bike, that's great. I started when I first got my first serious bike was a road bike. I did a few races on it. I inevitably decided to take the next step after that and put aero bars on my road bike. And that's good because it will get you more into that positioning, as you see here on that TT bike. It does allow you to rest your upper body. And when you're resting your upper body and you're not so tense on the bike, you're using less energy. And over the course of a half or a full distance triathlon, that's going to save a lot of energy of you not having to use your muscles to hold yourself up. As well, you'll be more efficient. You're going to cut through the wind a little bit. But remember, this is good. This is better, I would say, than just being on the road bike for triathlon reasons. But again, you are going to have different leg angles and different tube angles on your bike, so you're not getting the full benefit of having that TT bike. So there's a little something right here. Again, if you they say aero bars, riders typically find that they're going 1 to 2 miles per hour faster at the same level of effort. So what that is, if you're doing whatever you 7 out of 10 RP or certain wattage on the hoods of your bike, and you have clip-ons, and then you go down to the clip-ons and you have that same power output, that same effort, you're going to be more efficient cutting through the wind, and you're going to get yourself a little bit better of a bike split. And there, over 25 mile, so times that by 2 for almost a half distance, you could save up to 3 to 4 minutes on a half distance triathlon bike by putting the same effort out by being on those aero bars more. But again, that's going to come down to course specifics as well. You'd be on those aero bars if it is more of a flat course as opposed to being on a hilly course. There you go, reduces strain on your arms, wrists, and hands just by saving energy as well. So now let's talk about whether you have a road bike with aero bars, a tri bike, whatever you have. You've bought it, you have the gear, you have the bike now. How can we be a little more efficient on the bike? So the longest discipline in triathlon, the bike. Efficiency equals better results, faster speeds at less effort, like we just saw, by putting yourself into a more aerodynamic position at the same power output, we're able to go faster. To achieve efficiency on the bike in triathlon, focus on, and we're going to go into a few of these a little bit more after this, but proper bike fit, efficient pedaling techniques, gear selection. There's a reason why you have a bunch of gears on the bike. There are certain gears that will be more efficient than others in certain times during the race. Positioning, as opposed to how often you're up, how often you're down, how aggressive you can get with your bike fitting. Handling and cornering, braking technique, and training to build endurance and efficiency. Again, that's on those bigger rides that are going to happen on the weekends, or once a week. They're just going to get bigger and longer, and you're going to work on this efficient aerobic engine and the efficiency on the bike, and kind of being intentional with how you can get better on the bike and get better results, even if it's not about putting more power into it. Just by being more efficient and doing certain things, you'll be able to take your time down a little bit. Incorporate these drills and exercises that target specific skills, cadence drills, hill sprints. There's all kinds of things that we can start to work on to become a better cyclist. It does take time. You're not just going to go on your bike for one season and think you're going to be some master level cyclist. I'm still learning so much about cycling and efficiency on the bike that I'm still incorporating different things every season as we go about. And if you prioritize this efficiency on the bike, you'll be better equipped to tackle the demands of triathlon and perform at your best across all three disciplines. Because the more efficient your bike can be, I guarantee you the better run you're going to be. You're going to set yourself up for success on that run. Let's continue on here. Let's talk about the efficiency of a triathlon bike, also known as a TT bike. So you'll see this athlete right here has a bunch of stuff on. You must be thinking he's a pro or something like that. But this could be a typical age grouper at a race here. He's going to have a triathlon suit, some type of suit there. When you're shopping for a type of race suit, the snugger you can get it without being uncomfortable, the better, because you'll have less material that has folds in it, and it's just going to be smoother. It's going to cut through the wind more. They do say that some of the ones that come down the arm a little bit, the half sleeve ones, like the one here, are a little bit more efficient as opposed to ones that don't have sleeves, because you can start to get air under the sleeves. Having it fully zippered up, again, trying not to get wind going down, kind of like a sail. So no loose baggy clothing on that. So the better or fitting you can get that race suit, the more efficient that's going to be. I also see a lot of athletes who are progressing good, and they got a new bike, a couple grand for this bike, a few grand, brand new bike, and they got the kit, they got the bike, they're on their aero bars, they're working on efficiency, but they're still just riding around on this old standard typical helmet. There's a big gain you can have actually price wise that you can get from an aero helmet. Think about that. It's right here. It's this central point almost of where the wind is hitting you. And if you could direct that wind specifically over in a certain direction over your back and cut through the wind easier, you're going to gain a decent amount. You can even see right there, they got some times listed on this picture right here where they're saying, and I don't know what the distance is that they're basing this off of. It could be a half distance. It could be a full distance. But they're saying you could almost a minute right off your time just by getting a new aero helmet. So if you got the aero bars, you got your tri bike, you just got your suit, you got your aero helmet, I would say after that, again, aero frames, they're all becoming aero frames, those flat style carbon frames. A bike fit. A bike fit is just something we'll talk about in a little bit. It's just going to get you to make sure that the seat is the right height. There's so many adjustments on a bike. Height of the seat, forward and back on the seat, how high the aero bars are, how angled the aero bars are. There's different shapes of aero bars now, and they're going to be able to set you up at the bike shop in different positions to see what feels the best for you and make adjustments over a few sessions to really just get you comfortable on the bike. If you will bike better if you enjoy being on the bike and the bike is comfortable for you. So that is just something huge to work with somebody at a bike shop to get that. Going further down the rabbit hole here, wheels. Most expensive bikes now, tri bikes, come with some type of wheels, different size depth wheels. Again, you don't have to go as crazy as this picture here by having a full disc wheel in the back. Really specific for certain courses. You don't want to have a very high wind, crosswind course, and they're not very good for climbing courses. But on the flats, a good, deep dish wheel is very good. Typical average is about a 60 millimeter deep dish wheel, front and back. You could, if there's any interest in wheels, I could have a whole conversation about the different sizes, but it is also specific. The heavier you are as a rider, the little deeper dish you can get. If you're a very light rider, females, some of the lighter riders out there, if you get too deep of a wheel, you can face some high crosswind issues there, and you don't want to be getting blown around a lot. It could actually be detrimental then to your time if it's too much. So things to think about. Hydration systems on the front. They've been doing a lot of testing with those between the handlebars or different types of ways to put your hydration on the front. But think about that. You could have all this stuff and you could have a nice helmet, the good suit, the good bike fit, the good bike, and good positioning. And your hydration system just isn't very efficient, and it's plopped on there, this big old system between your handlebars, and it's just killing your efficiency. So do some research on what you have on your bike, kind of see if there's something new out there. That every year they're coming out with some type of some different way to just be more efficient and more aerodynamic with the way these bikes are set up in the front. There's all kinds of charts out there. These are different things that we'll show you over a time trial, just what kind of like the cost versus gain and efficiency is on these. And again, please don't go out and drop $3,000 on wheels, new kits, new helmets, all that right away. Enjoy the journey. You'll actually see on the next slide, I see it coming up. So just take this in right now real quick, and then we'll get to the next slide. I'll finish that point right there. But you can see, you can gain some good time here. And this is doing nothing else besides actually kind of buying speed, if you want to say it. Be buying more efficiency. You can't really do that on the swim and the run. Yeah, you got your super shoes and all that. We'll talk about that when we get to the run lecture. But this is right here what you can do, simple things that are out there, and just a little bit over time. So you'll appreciate this slide right here. That was my first multi-sport race. It was a duathlon. You'll see right there, that is a performance hybrid bike with clip-on aero bars, sneakers, regular bike helmet, regular shorts, loose jersey, just loving life, having fun, and doing it. And I had just as much fun that day as I do now. Fast forward, bunch of years later, bunch of races later, I've kind of dialed in my efficiency and my gear, and as you can tell, I have a pretty decent setup right now. Super aerodynamic frame and bike, very aerodynamic set of wheels for some specific courses that I do. I've gotten multiple bike fits over the years, just dialed in right now, and I'm just pride myself on getting as most efficiency as I can out of my bike, and then putting in the work to build the engine that's going to ride that efficient machine and get me to good bike splits for myself. And still progressing, still getting there, still tweaking things, and always working on just training and becoming more efficient and getting that bike time down. So this is inevitably going to spike a question now is, oh my God, do I need a new bike? Or I went to that race. These people have these crazy bikes. Do I need to go buy a new one? From my own personal experience, I'm going to tell you enjoy the journey. You can get great results on a road bike. You can get great results on, a used tri bike. Doesn't have to be top of the line. Doesn't have to be this year's model. It is nice to have a road bike and a tri bike at some point. So if you have a road bike now and you're going to go get a tri bike, if it's feasible, I would keep that road bike around. It's good you can kind of keep it on the trainer possibly during the season. So you have one bike on the trainer, one bike for your tri bike to go out and about. And it's just good. It's good to have a road bike to be able to get out and just ride on the road and ride in a group. It's just so much more comfortable, so much more appealing to take on just these fun bike adventures when it's not so specific for training for a race. That tri bike will be more efficient. It's going to save your hamstrings and glutes a little bit more for the run due to the angles of the bike that we were talking about and your body positioning. But big thing is it's not cheap. Take your time and make the right purchases at the right time for you. As you saw in that last, my timeline of things was I actually did one race before that picture was taken at a duathlon with some random hybrid bike that I found. I got off and I was blowing spokes apart going up the hill during this race. It was pretty funny. Bought that bike just because I thought like, hey, this is a big upgrade from what I had. Until you start showing up at these races. Shortly after that, I bought my first road bike. I still have that road bike hanging around. It was just a used carbon road bike. Put some aero bars on that. Did a few races on that. Inevitably went to found a nice used tri bike, that good value on the secondary market. Rode that for a little bit, and then found the bike that I have now, again on the secondary market, and have made it my own since. And it's still new enough. It's a few years old now, that bike, model year wise, but it still has the current generation of technology for everything basically besides disc brakes, which is fine by me not having them on my race bike, where it's still future-proof for a little while. So I'm not going to lose out on the efficiency versus the crowd too much right now with the bike that I have. And again, just learned a lot through that process. Maybe could have made some better decisions along the way financially. But again, it's all a learning process. Let's talk about it if you want to make these decisions, and we'll see what the best decision is for you at that time. One of the things I did talk about was a bike fit. It's just super important. There's a lot of points here that you can pause and read. But the biggest thing is everybody's different. Some people have longer legs than other people. Some people have longer torsos than others, longer reaches. Also, it depends on your flexibility. Are you able to get down into such an aggressive position, or do they need to raise that front end, that cockpit up a little bit for you because you're getting some discomfort in your lower back? You're just not going to want to do the training or these races at these longer distances if your bike isn't comfortable. And as we get older, you may dial your bike into a more comfortable fit, or if you're sticking to a healthy lifestyle, stretching, and you're a little more stretchable as your seasons are progressing, you can even dial in a more aggressive fit as you go on and slowly kind of lower the cockpit down, get into a more aero position, and become a little even more aggressive on it. But these things may change. So just because you got one bike fit this year on your new bike or your used bike doesn't mean that that's it. If things start to act up down the road, or you're getting a little bit of just something's not feeling right here and there, you're not comfortable, go back and get it reevaluated by a good bike fitter. It'll prevent injuries, improve performance, comfort. Your control on the bike is going to be better if you're comfortable, and you're going to have less fatigue on it. Posture is going to be better. It's all going to make you a more confident rider. And depending on your style too, if you like to, again, be that more aggressive, harder rider, you're going to want a more aerodynamic stance. If you're kind of just want to enjoy the ride a little bit more, they can dial it back a little bit, make it a little more comfortable. Again, you are strapped to a bike made of carbon, so it's not going to be, sitting in a Rolls Royce, but you don't have to be in pain. That's really what it comes down to. And it will get better over time. Certain things, just cycling becomes more comfortable the more you do it and the longer distances that you go. So overall, bike fit is just essential for if you're serious in this sport, you want to do it, more than just one race or one season. It's going to definitely improve you and improve your cycling quite a bit. You just see some of these pictures right here. If you've never been to there, you're gonna go to the bike shop. I can recommend a couple people for you if you're local, and they're going to basically do some measuring on you. They're going to see how flexible you are. They're going to get you on the bike. They're going to take pictures of you. They're going to take video of you. They're going to see what type of power you're putting out in those positions. And then they're going to make some changes. So you can see how this person here, they kind of changed a few things up. They were able to fix a few things, and they look a lot more comfortable on there. So cycling, let's talk about how we measure kind of one's output in cycling. Because it's tough to do it by heart rate. It's tough to do it a lot by pace, but we can do it by power. Power is the gold standard for measuring fitness and output on the bike. Power is just a crucial metric because it can help riders improve their performance, efficiency, and overall cycling experience. Power is used to measure in cycling because it provides a direct and accurate way to quantify an athlete's performance, efficiency, and fitness. Judging off of speed can provide inaccurate results, and measuring with heart rate has so many variables, depending on terrain, the day, the atmosphere, what kind of weather conditions you have. But power is the amount of force you're going to put on your bike pedals or the crank of your bike, and it's going to give you a tangible number right then and there, whether you're going downhill, uphill, or on a flat. That's just the amount of physical force that you're putting out on the bike. We can measure that by FTP. If you've done one of these tests before, you know it's tough. It's kind of like running a 5K in running. That's what I equate it to. It's going to give us this number, this functional threshold power, which we've talked about in the zone talks before. And it's just a number that they say that you can hold for about that hour point. This is also a lactate threshold. This is because it's a high intensity effort. This is what you can sustain without exceeding and getting into your anaerobic capacity, which is then going to produce lactic acid and inevitably kind of create that bonk that you get while you're out there riding. So if we can train below threshold, it's more of an aerobic type workout and you're able to last longer. If you go above your threshold for too long, you're going to start to hit that point where you're going to start to bonk there. FTP testing is important, just like the 5K test is important or the heart rate test is important, pace testing, whatever you want to call it, for running, because it's going to then define some zones we can be in. And the good thing is we can take those zones, we can apply them to an indoor trainer, or we can apply them to outdoors. But the one difference I like to tell people is don't hang your hat on what your trainer's giving you numbers-wise versus what your bike, if you have a power meter on it, outdoors is going to give you. We kind of have to treat them a little separately just because and each power meter as well, if you have a pedal power meter, say, on one bike, your road bike, and you have a power meter on the rear hub of your triathlon bike, they're reading power at two different points on the drivetrain, so they're not going to give 100% accurate results. So what I would recommend for things like that is if we have multiple ways to get power, like indoors on the trainer, we would do an FTP test so we have zones for the trainer. And if you have a power meter on your bike, we would try and set up some type of time trial in a controlled environment so we can kind of see where that specific power meter is going to put your numbers at. So when we do the kind of translation from indoors and outdoors, we'll have kind of a more accurate. But again, that is getting kind of like really to the top tier of the pyramid that I like to call it, of all those levels. This is kind of like, that's like top tier stuff to be dealing with, making sure that power meters, because they will be in the same range. But if you're really trying to find that next little bit of percentage that we're still missing on cycling, that's something we would want to look at. All right, so fueling, cycling. Speaking of fueling, it's the most important time to fuel during the triathlon. It's the longest portion. You're able to consume more while you're on the bike as opposed to on the run. And you're able to set yourself up for a good run. So fueling is just super important, and it has to be super intentional. And during training specifically, we really need to hone down on it because we have to train the gut over time. We have to train getting up to these. I mean, you can look at what some of those target grams per hour now on the bike. So say you're going out, or you're doing a half, right? You're doing a 56-mile bike out there. And they're going with 90 to 120 grams of carbs an hour. So the best thing I can tell you to do now is start keeping track, especially on your long rides. And for those coached athletes, drop some information in your training peaks after your ride. Just because you went out for a ride and had a good ride, okay, but what happened during that ride? Write down what you took, how many grams, figure it out. maybe you think you're taking enough and you're like, wow, I am kind of short. And I kind of felt, a little tired afterwards. And then we can add a little bit more next time and try and see if we can get those numbers up a little bit. You'd be surprised too. You think you're taking a lot. You're like, I'll throw a scoop of this or that, whatever, take a gel. If you really add all that up, sometimes you'd be surprised that it's not all that much that we really need, we need more. So if we don't have those numbers and I don't know what you're taking or consuming, we can't fix that part of the equation, because that bike, that is just super important. I've had athletes that have sat down with them. They keep wondering why on a 70.3, why they're halfway through the run just falling off. So, well, let's rewind a lot. What's going on in the morning? What's going on right before the swim? Specifically, what's going on during the bike? What are we taking? And after we start writing some things down and start looking the numbers up, we're way under fueled there. And what's inevitably going to happen? You're just going to run out. You're going to run out of fuel on the run, and it's not going to be good. So you can take more than you can think. Hydration systems on the bikes, whatever you're doing, find a system that works for you and practice with it. I tried the front end, dumping bottles, filling my hydration system in the front, things with the straws. I have 2-3 different types. I just didn't like them. They were a mess. I could never find a good one. I would have to spend time refilling bottles with it. I just go with water bottles now. I have a cage right between my handlebars, 2 extra water bottles. I can carry 3 water bottles on my bike, actually 4 if I really want to, and I could just swap them out. But I'm good with the one-handed operation of doing all that because I've practiced it. So if you've been training for a while and you're kind of still stopping to change things and put fuel here and there, the controlled environment, we got to start practicing fueling while we're on the bike, fueling while we're moving on the bike, grabbing bottles from the aid stops if that's something you need to do, and practice. That also leads us to bike handling skills. I'm still not immune from it, making some silly decisions from time to time. There's a couple years ago, someone snapped a picture of it after I came into the parking lot, clipped out, went the wrong way, and just took a nice soft fall. It was after a long ride. I was mentally exhausted, and I just kind of sat there for a minute and kind of just laughed it off. But bike handling skills, practice. That's going to make you a better cyclist. Proper use of gears. That's why we have gears. Certain gears don't cross chain. If you're not understanding even what that means, let's talk about it. Let's work together. Let's get some one-on-one practice if we need it. Climbing hills properly. How to not have too much tension on your chain as you're shifting gears uphill. That can throw your chain off and drop a chain as well. Descending hills properly. Having enough tension on your chain going downhill so you can actually have control. You ever go down a hill, you weren't in the right gear, you went to start pedaling, and all of a sudden there was no tension on the drive chain because you were in the wrong gear? That's bad, because if you would have had to make a quick evasive maneuver and have some tension under your chain, that would have been no good. Cornering. There's a couple tips to cornering. When you go to make a right turn, make sure that inside foot is actually up, because if you have long crank arms, if you have big feet, you can actually skip your pedal on the floor, and I'll tell you right now, that's not going to be fun. If you're going to make a left turn and that crank is down and you have your foot pointed down, you got a big old size 12 or 13 on a 175 crank, you could dig that right into the ground on a sharp turn, and that's not going to end very well. So things to think about, things to, in a group setting, if you got questions with friends and you ride with them, ask them questions, pick people's brains about all this stuff. And then not just clipping in and out as far as riding, at crossings and stuff, but mounting and dismounting for transition. Practice how you're going to mount and dismount. If you want to do some flying mounts and keep your shoes on the bike and like you see the pros do and all the nice good age groupers, then by all means, try it though. Practice it. Don't just try it on race day. And again, these are just things that you got to practice, and choose little things at a time. Once you get good and efficient at them, go work on something else. Kind of like swimming. You can't change a lot of things at once because it'll just become a blur. Work on little aspects of cycling over time to become a better, efficient, good cyclist. Big conversation always comes up is cadence. Cadence sensors, cadence this, cadence that, RPMs. What should I do? What should I be at? There's actually a few different types of cadence zones to be in. What they like to say is being control cadence, maintenance cadence, and accelerate cadence. What you need to know though is the efficient cadence is around 85 to 90 RPM just for riding. That's kind of where you need to be as far as just kind of riding on the flats, putting in some good power. That's a good number to be at. What they mean by control is controlling efforts on difficult terrain, steep hills, use seated and standing. So practice what it feels like to be at a 55 to 70 RPM low cadence. Maintenance is, again, that 71 to 85. That's when you're at speed, maintaining speed, following an acceleration, shifting down. Then let's also practice, though, high cadence. Cadence is key for making acceleration effective. You don't want to be hammering around 80 RPM and then all of a sudden hit too many gears and be at a high wattage at a low cadence because you're just going to smash and rip apart your muscles in your legs. There are efficient ways to do it. So just practice and ride, and you can do this definitely on the trainer is the easy way to kind of just see how you feel and how the legs act under certain different cadences and a certain drive chain tension, and just practice it. Practice, practice, practice. And again, you will also just see what works better for you because different bikes, different cyclists, different crank lengths. I have one of my bikes has longer cranks than the other bike, so getting that large crank around fast enough, around the 90 RPM, is kind of tough. So that bike, I know, is a little harder to get towards that 90 RPM when I want to be efficient. But on my other bike, they're slightly smaller, and I'm able to get a quicker RPM going on the bike. Pedal stroke was actually a topic someone brought up this past week, so I threw this slide in here as one of the last slides. They just said it was good that they were thinking about this because a pedal stroke, remember, is not just down on both, like down left, down right, down left, down right. It is a full motion. So as you can see, I like this graph because I was trying to find one that really showed what I wanted to put here was what muscles are worked at what part of the pedal stroke, and how much of that, power and muscle is at what. So you can see, yes, from the top, driving forward and down is the largest force and the amount of power that we're going to put out. But don't get lazy and not use muscles to pull the pedal back up. So what you can do to work on this is as you're cycling, just especially if you have a power meter, it's cool to just kind of look at the numbers and see where you're at. Just cycle normal, just down, down. Just think about down, 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 down. And now also take a look at your computer, but also now be aware of that upstroke on the backside of the pedal. So visually and feel your muscles pushing down, up, and this full circle of a pedal stroke. And you'll be able to kind of see like, whoa, like my power actually kind of went up a little bit because now I'm keeping some power in the pedal as I'm going down forward again. And you'll be able to see that I'm actually putting in a little bit more effort now because I'm using all the muscles that need to be had. I'm not getting lazy on the pedal stroke on both sides. So work on that. Also, one thing you could do for that is one leg cadence drills. Obviously do this on an indoor trainer. Don't try and do it outside. Is if you just have an easy ride for the day, practice some cadence stuff. Like I said, the different cadence levels, see how they feel with different gears. And then what you can do is slow down, unclip one leg, just kind of keep it out to the side and practice cycling with one leg. And you'll see you have to actually push, from top down and do your upstroke coming back up. Do very short intervals in that, 15 seconds, 30 seconds. Clip the other foot back in, clip out, and then rest for a few minutes, get both, and then do that. Do that 2-3 times every so often, just so you can build that muscle memory of what a full pedal stroke actually looks like. Some power meters will actually analyze your entire stroke. They'll tell you where in the pedal stroke you are kind of lacking in power, so that's something to look at too. But again, that is just, getting way too into it. Don't become the paralysis by analysis, like I've said before. That's just stay at the surface level, get as big gains you can get out of that as possible. Really, 20% of all of what I'm talking about right now is going to yield you 80% of results. And working on that last 20%, that real top end pyramid stuff, efficiency stuff, does take a lot of time and effort. But you can take little bits of all these right here, especially this next one, and get really great results. Know your route or course. Why is this important? Well, specifically for races, it's good to know what kind of course you get involved in. I've mapped out courses. I print courses out ahead of time. I've visualized myself cycling these courses over and over and over again before race day. I'll have an elevation profile. If it's a 70.3, a 56-mile elevation profile map, I'll make little 5-mile segments in there and know that, okay, mile 0 to 5 is a straight incline coming out of transition. It's going to level off for the next 10 miles. And then say, oh, well, it's going to go downhill then for 5 miles before we get into that last section, or a double loop and we have to do it a second time. Know what's coming so you can kind of prepare. Again, if you do that specifically for races, that you'll get 80% return on that. If you want to be a little bit better, take it to that next level, do that extra 20%. You'll see what I'm going to show you next. But they can also do this in training. Know where you're going. Know what you're getting yourself into. If it's a new route, ask your friends for kind of like the elevation map from a Garmin or something like that, just so you can kind of see where you're going for the day. They could say, hey, we're going out east, we're going riding, I got a nice route, just follow me. No, let me see at least what it is so I know what we're getting involved in. I know the elevation profile, and I know all that good stuff. This is now taking it to that next level, and I'm going to pop myself a little smaller up here just so you can kind of see what this is. This is called Epic Ride Weather, and what this is an app where if you have the GPX profile of the course, say the race, which you can always kind of find somebody's and download it, or a course you've done before, you're able to put it into this app, load it in. You're able to select the day and time upcoming of when you want to do it. So say we'll just take this first one right here. This was the one right in the middle. This was Muscle Man last year. Say I'm doing the race this weekend. I would load it in there. I would take a look at, it gives you the elevation profile on the bottom, so you can kind of go through things there. It'll also give me the wind direction, wind speed, wind gusts, and it will change. So it knows, hey, I'm doing this course starting at 8 a.m. and I'm going to average 20 miles per hour. It's going to tell me how the temperature is going to change during my ride, in what direction the wind's going to be blowing. So if I'm going on a certain side of the course, the wind is going to be in my face. I'm going to have a tailwind. I'm going to have a headwind. Maybe there's a storm rolling in, because that's exactly what happened there on the right-hand side. Was Jones Beach 70.3 last year. There was a hurricane blowing in. So you can see the wind direction was headed this way along the course. It was an out and back. And wind speed and wind gusts were worse in one direction than the others because of the wind speed. So you can see here, it's going to tell me, yeah, at some point on the course from here to here, and if you drag the cursor along on the app, it will show you exactly what point of the course to expect this. You'll know at 10:45 you're going to be in the storm right here. You're going to have 24 mile per hour winds with gusts up to 40 miles per hour. That would be something I think I would want to know for race day so I can prepare myself. I may even make some mental notes and tape them to the top tube of my bike about mileage, which I've done before. The Muscle Man route here, why this was important for me last year is it was, again, a windier day. We knew we were going to have some wind, and because the elevation profile, it climbs in the middle of the course, and then you can see halfway through the course, it's basically downhill to the finish. And if you look at the course on here, you're also going to see that at the south end, the turnaround, the wind is going to be at your back going back into transition. So I knew I would be going basically downhill back to transition for about 20 miles, and I'm going to have this high amount of wind at my back. So long story short, I put in one hell of a bike split on the back end of that course because I knew I needed to save a little bit going into the wind, going up this hill, but it was going to pay dividends, and I knew that from that point forward, it was just game on getting back to transition, and it worked out really well. So again, that's next level. That's if you've been racing for a little while. That's if you're looking for that little extra edge. That's something we talk about a couple seasons in on really how to really set up your race and really be good at what you're doing out there and make those smart decisions. The next one is a really big, important one. This is almost the last one here, is know how to fix your bike. Like, that's just, something's going to happen out there. It happens, unfortunately, more often than to people than others. I had as far as, half distance or above, like my A races, one flat 2 years ago in North Carolina. And I forgot how long it took me to change it, but it was only a couple minutes. I still wound up putting up one of my fastest 70.3 bike splits on that course, even with having the flat tire that day. My ride was going phenomenal. Mile 40, I went down on a slow leak flat, was able to change it, diagnose it, get back out there. I was shooting for a PR that day, so I put in a big effort after I got back on the bike to get into transition, and I still threw in a good bike split because I was confident in fixing it. I knew, took a deep breath, did what I had to do, and took care of it. A clean bike as well, maintenance it. I want to, for local athletes, message me. I'm just big on this. We'll have clinics, one-on-ones, whatever you need to do. Let's figure it out. You got to maintenance it from ride to ride. There's certain things you got to do after you're riding outside, preparing for the next one. There's no need to be going around on an inefficient bike with a chain that doesn't have any lubricant, or your pulleys or cassettes are just caked up with all this gunk, salt, sand, dirt. You're just wasting energy. You're not being efficient out there whatsoever. Simple maintenance can go a long way. And just, again, learn how to fix your flats. What else we got here? It's nothing worse than ruining a great race with improper preparation. So you didn't make your checks. You didn't go over what you had. You didn't notice that you had a crack in your tire. Next thing you know, you have a blowout. Something we definitely don't want to have. Changing batteries. That's a big one. Hey, even myself, I'm guilty of it. Tonight I wanted to go out for a ride after work, and my computer was completely dead, so I had to charge it up real quick and wait a little bit to get back out there. But heart rate straps, power meters, make a schedule, get on top of that. It would stink if you were going out to do a big training ride that we were looking to get data from, and your power meter went out halfway through because you didn't change it in over a year. What I got here, some pictures, is an athlete that, and I saved this, I bring this out during my flat tire clinics that I do, is they had probably an older tire that was starting to dry rot a little bit. They ran over some shells out on a bike path. They got a couple cuts there you can see with the red arrow, and the tire popped, cut the tube. They put a new tube in. They didn't notice after they inflated it that the cuts were through the tire, and the tube would start under pressure, under 90 psi, 100 psi, would start to push through that tire. And now basically what you're doing is every time you continue on, you say, all right, we're good, and you continue on, it was pinching the tube every time the tire went around. So a couple miles later, it flattened the next tube. They put another tube in from somebody else. It flattened it again. They gave up, threw their hands up. They got picked up. No harm, no foul. I mean, it happens. We were able to diagnose it in a controlled environment by looking at it. I said, let me see what happens when we put a tube in this tire. We put it in, and I saw that. It was cut straight through the tire. But now I said, you know what? I have these tire patches. I've never actually used them before. They're emergency tire boots that you put inside the tire. And after we put that boot in, we put a tube back in the tire, inflated it. Not a chance it was going to go through that tire because we basically sealed where that cut was. So if I have that in my flat tire kit, that's something I always recommend. You can actually use a folded dollar bill. It's thick enough. You fold it 3 times. You can stick it in your tire. But this does have adhesive. You can stick it on the inside of your tire. So think about that. If this was my flat that I had at mile 40, it would have been the difference between finishing the race, getting back to transition, or even in training, just finishing your ride for the day, or having possibly a DNF because I'm getting pulled off the bike course because I just don't understand why I can't keep air in my tire. Again, you're not going to learn this your first season, your second season even, like all these little things. These are just things you're going to learn over time through experience, through talking to people, and just putting those miles in and stepping up to the start lines. That's when you're going to start to learn all this stuff and just putting miles in. Last thing we're talking about here is group rides. All this is fun. We want to go out on our group rides. They're great all season to just kind of get out there and have some fun. Just know, though, they're great for accountability. They do have their purpose. If you're not on the same training plan as the athlete you're riding with, that's fine. I was able to jump in on this picture right here with one of the athletes at the bottom. Was a ride that they just happened to be doing on a deload week for their full distance training. I wasn't even in the training plan yet, but I had some good bike fitness for the year so far, and I tailed them and paced them for a nice, I believe it was a 50-mile bike ride. Anything more than that though, like, would have started to kind of not really do much for me. I would have been pushing. Like, that was my limit for the day. That was a short ride for them because they were in this full distance training plan. But the long story short of it is we were still able to ride together because we lined up our training that weekend because I knew I could do that distance. They had that distance. But even that, if they had an 80-mile or 100-mile ride that day, I would have rode only, that 50 miles with them and just been like, have a good day. Because there is this diminishing returns. If we're not at the ability of the group, and it's good to push sometimes, it's good to extend ourselves a little bit from time to time, but if you're constantly going out and pushing too much too soon on the bike, especially in the season, you're going to have these diminished returns. And what that means is you could be pushing yourself to too much fatigue, affecting your next workout, not recovering enough. Just because you can go do that 60-mile 80-mile bike ride right now with a friend doesn't mean it's a good idea if it's not where you're at in your training plan. So just be careful of that. So just be careful in groups as well, and know your rider. If you can find a training partner that you trust to ride with, similar ability, similar goals, maybe signed up for the same race, I will tell you that'll probably be one of the biggest things out of all of this that will take you to another level. Is every season, I typically find in just the way the stars align, kind of start riding with certain people every year. It's not always the same people because different goals, different people every year. But when I lock in and get a good training group for the race that I'm doing or the training that I'm doing, and I'm able to get some of those solid sessions in with people that are doing the same type of rides that I'm doing, and we're able to overlap our training, we can push each other and we can definitely have a lot of fun. With those fireworks going off in the background, I guess that means, hey, we've reached the summary here. Let's just hit the last few things here. Bike, longest part of the triathlon. So much improvement can be gained from fitness and efficiency. A good bike can set up a great run and leading to an overall great race. But please, whenever I have one of these talks, everybody goes, oh my God, there's so much. This is so overwhelming. Break this down piece by piece. Work on one thing at a time. Don't think next week you got to go buy everything, a new bike, a power meter, a new kit, a new helmet, aero wheels, download apps, load courses, one-legged cadence drills, all this stuff right away. It's going to take you some seasons and some races and some training plans. But I will tell you, if you stick with it and enjoy it and want to learn and want to ask questions and want to practice, it's just going to take your biking and cycling to a whole nother level. Don't overcomplicate it. Small things, season after season. But most of all, seriously, you got to have fun out there. That hard fun that I like to say. But my new thing now is smart hard fun. We don't want to just go out there and train too hard all the time. We want to do the right stuff at the right time. And again, it's always you versus you out there. And if you take that approach, who cares if you're on a hybrid bike right now? It's you versus you. That's what your times are. We're going to work on it. And then think about this, though. Even if you don't have the greatest bike in the world right now and versus what everybody else has, that's fine. We'll get a new bike at some point. Let's do what we can now. We can still train really good. We can still make the engine, what you have inside of you, that good. So when you do get a new piece of gear, a new kit, a new bike, it's going to take you to another level because you're going to be building that engine already. Nothing you're going to do in here is going to take you to the top of your age group without putting the effort and the right amount of training in. And that's the key takeaway there. So after all is said and done, stay safe, stay healthy out there. Keep balancing that life 1 mile at a time. Hope you got something out of this video. There should be a swim video, a run video coming out in the next couple weeks. And then I'm probably going to work on even a transition video to kind of put it all together. But cycling, number one, work on it. Biggest part of the triathlon. You'll be able to knock it out of the park. Have fun with it. And that's it. I'll catch you all next time.